I come in?
Please come. Do sit down, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I hope you are comfortable and no hassles in coming over to this place.
No, sir.
Very good, very good. I'm absolutely impressed by your excellent CV, outstanding academic record.
Thank you, sir.
Gold medal and everything.
Thank
and
you.
Also your hobby. An amazing hobby. We'll talk about that during the course of our interaction.
Yes, sir.
But first about Banaras,
Yes,
Varanasi. So how long was your stay in Varanasi and the BHU?
Sir, I stayed there for 4 years.
I also have some had interaction with Varanasi and the adjoining areas.
Yes, sir.
And BHU, going to BHU, of course going to Varanasi is like a pilgrimage. It is a pilgrimage, but going to BHU also is a pilgrimage.
Yes, sir.
There was a recent very ugly incident where the girl students
Yes.
staged a dharna demonstration, used most unacceptable language towards the Vice Chancellor. And for what? Only the duty hours, the hours in respect where the girl students would be allowed to be outside the premises and other such minor issues. How would you react to this kind of a demonstration by girls, which is verges on the level of violence?
Sir, the girl students probably had a demonstration because they wanted a relaxation in their their timings, I believe. But sir, the law and order situation in BHU and the adjoining areas is not that conducive for atmosphere, because when I was staying in BHU, I personally felt that there were a lot of non-conducive elements there. So their demands are justified, but obviously the undignified language that is used against the Vice Chancellor is not. They could have kept their demands in a more calming manner and in a peaceful manner. So sir, I think both the sides should sit for consultations and in a proper manner decide these outcomes.
Very good. But what you term as non-conducive elements, I'll call them hoodlums and antisocial elements.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Under these circumstances, which parent, which guardian, which teacher or warden would allow the girl students to venture out in the dark and the ugly hours and take a very calculated risk? Do you think the management had a point there?
Yes, sir. Management had a point there, because parents' concerns are also justified in this manner. But sir, I think in the long term we should focus on removing those hooligans and non-conducive elements from there, so that the girls can feel safe, and then we will also not have such kind of protests in the future.
Very good question, very good observation. Now, after you qualify, you become the police commissioner of Varanasi.
Yes, sir.
And as a police commissioner, as a lady police commissioner,
yes, sir,
how would you start Operation Romeo? You must have heard of Operation Romeo?
Sir, I've heard of it, but I'm forgetting the exact meaning.
I'll recast the question.
Yes, sir.
The so-called non-conducive elements, on whom I call hoodlums and antisocial elements,
yes, sir.
How would you root them out and give them the fear of God within the ambit of law?
Sir, I think first of all we should enhance the surveillance. There is a lot of scope of technology in this. We could have some CCTV cameras. We can also use some artificial intelligence enabled detection. So if the surveillance is enhanced, automatically we will be able to detect such incidents. And sir, whatever anti-social elements or hooligan elements, they should be dealt with the strictest punishments. And what we need is more proactiveness of the police, and I think that can only happen through surveillance.
Very good answer. Now, first of all, let me go. There is no dearth of CCTV cameras.
Yes, sir.
The CCTV cameras, but like any gun, more important than the arm is the man sitting behind the gun. More important than the gadget is the man who is monitoring the
yes,
CCTV
sir.
footages.
Yes, sir.
I am given to understand that there is a software that gives you that level, coupled with artificial intelligence, as you said. Is it possible to monitor all the disturbing elements and the so-called unsocial and the hoodlums during the course of movement? Is it possible electronically and through artificial intelligence, or one has to physically monitor the CCTV?
So in the present scenario, when we have the CCTV cameras, we use the physical monitoring of a person has to sit behind, but if we enable it with artificial intelligence and provide it with the right kind of training data, then it can itself detect the kind of the hooligan or the anti-social things which are happening. But in the end, sir, I think for somebody to take action on that, some form of human interference would be required. So we can detect those things, but some form of human intelligence is also required to take action on that.
Very good. You are dealing with them as non-conducive elements. But in Varanasi, there is a saying that a good police commissioner is one. Listen to me very carefully.
Yes, sir.
And this is my last question. A good police commissioner is one who is a half butcher and half human. Would you agree to it or disagree to it, and why?
Sir, I think the statement is true because I think as a part of the police, you have to deal with people, so you have to be human for that, so that you can listen to their problems, understand their problems. But when you are dealing with the anti-social elements, you have to set a deterrence for that. And sir, butcher would be a far-fetched word, but yes, I think deterrence, we should set a strong precedent by dealing with them strictly, so that people can feel safe, and if people are safe, everything would be fine.
Well, I would tempted to ask the last, with your permission, that deterrence should be within the ambit of law or third degree? No,
sir. It should be always within the ambit of law. And sir, that is because so there are strict laws and guidelines which should govern the functioning of the society at all times. If the police itself will break the laws, it sets a very bad precedent even for the people. Then the people will resort to breaking of the laws. So we should always be confined within the laws when we are acting.
Thank you. Very good, sir.
I'm curious about some part of your gap, A brilliant student from DPS onwards, why did you think of appearing for the special class railway apprentice in 2015?
Sir, to be honest, one reason was because, sir, everybody who was preparing for IIT was also appearing for the exam. And sir, the second reason was, sir, that exam also involved physics, chemistry and mathematics. So I just wanted to kind of check my skills for the IJE.
It was a kind of a full dress rehearsal for the IIT entrance exam.
Sir, yes, sir.
Fair enough, fair enough. Then, your academic career is absolutely brilliant. There is no question about that. You also have a connection with Jharkhand?
Yes, sir. Sir, I have lived almost all my life in Jharkhand.
You have been to Jamshedpur?
Yes, sir. I have stayed in Jamshedpur. Yes, sir.
The second part of your biodata again interests me. You have done your 10th with the CSIC board.
Yes, sir.
Your 12th is the CBSE board.
Yes, sir.
Now, I would like you to respond to the debate which is going on in the context of the new education policy, that the CBSE has one kind of a standardization, state education boards have different marking, CBSE allows you to score very high and the CISE board doesn't, and then when you compete for entrance at a graduation level, the cutoffs play havoc. The CBSE students have scored much higher than the Indian Secondary Certification Board, etc., and the state boards are not in the reckoning at all. When the UGC chairman proposes a common central universities entrance test, the board ceases to have any meaning. I'm not going to ask you to criticize the decision of the UGC chairman, which interferes very seriously, to my mind, with the whole nature of school education, etc., goes beyond the mandate of also makes a distinction between central universities and non-central universities, private universities and state universities. My problem is more related to the syllabi. Now, what happens is that when you prepare for IIT or something, or you prepare even for UPSC, the advice normally given to you is to start with the NCERT textbooks. Now, the NCERT textbooks again have a problem we keep discussing, that NCERT textbooks, when they were introduced, was one set of educators committed to one set of political ideology. I'm not saying that all of them were Marxist, but they were broadly liberal, left of center, committed to Nehruvian concept of, and the syllabus was framed accordingly. Then the government changed, and the so-called saffronization of the textbooks started. Then there was a swing back again. So what happens is the CISE syllabus is one, NCERT syllabus is another, and if everything hinges on mindless application of multiple choice questions like the apprentice examination in the special railways, now what do you think that is a sensible way to test people?
Sir, I think the common entrance test that has been proposed would be a step towards uniformity in the sense that there will be a uniform platform for every board to appear. But sir, what I would suggest or what I would want is that the common entrance test should be based on the syllabi which is derived out of consensus from all the boards.
My question was precisely that.
Yes,
because
sir.
Mr. Jagdish Kumar has made it very clear that the multiple choice questions asked in this test will be based on NCERT textbooks.
Yes,
and NCERT textbooks current syllabus. Yes, with the new education policy and saying that we don't agree to whatever was done damage to Indian education system and so on. Now what happens is that not everybody is following the NCERT textbooks in schools. Not everybody subscribe to the new text which is going to be prescribed.
Yes.
So isn't it going to dilute the quality? So on the basis of the argument that you are having uniformity, you are imposing a particular set of, shall we say, values and factual information on the student.
Yes, sir. That actually might be a problem in this case, that CBSE students might have an advantage because of having studied in NCERT. Sir, the only suggestion I can give in this case would be that the government should consider should actually consider the opinion of all the boards here and try to derive a common framework on which the test is conducted, sir.
But the extensive debate, according to the present government, took place before the national new educational policy was formulated.
Yes, sir.
I'm not interested in that part of the debate.
Yes.
You can't keep having this dialogue going on for infinity.
Yes,
My
sir.
problem is that this involves the issues of values and social sciences. If you are appearing for the IIT exam,
Yes, sir.
it doesn't apply because you are basically going to do the multiple choice questions on physics, chemistry, mathematics. But if you are going to do the subjects which involve ethics and values, yes, and your concept
history
of what history especially and what is your idea of India,
Yes, sir.
doesn't it make a great difference for the aspiring civil servant that you are not going to go to school again,
Yes, sir.
but you again are beginning to prepare for your IAS with NCERT textbooks?
Yes, sir.
How would you respond to that? It's a debate which goes to the core of the Indian national identity, and no amount of broad-based debate can ever settle it, especially if the country is divided, shall we say, 80-20.
So that is true that history, geography, these subjects require some subjective analysis also. Just checking on multiple choice questions might not be the only solution. So probably, but this has not been done, but probably a certain weightage should also be given to the board marks secured. I think the government has also allowed a certain amount of weightage to be given to the marks which is secured in the board examinations.
No, the statement by Mr. Dr. Jagdish Kumar is very, very clear. Board marks will not matter henceforth.
Okay, sir. So I think it is for eligibility.
Specific.
Okay, sir. I think it was for eligibility considerations that you just have to pass the board examination. So, sir, I feel some weightage should be given to the board examinations, or sir, there's another alternative in the common exam itself. If another subjective paper is also introduced, that would probably help in gauging the values and ideals of the
All right.
students.
One last question I have from my side for you here. You also worked for Goldman Sachs for a short while.
Yes, sir.
There was a permanent job.
Yes, sir.
But you stayed there only for 5 months.
Sir, 8
or
months.
6 months, 7 months,
8
months.
months, yes, sir.
And you resigned in 2019.
Yes, sir.
So may I ask you, why did you do that? And if civil service was your priority, why not start preparing for the first chance then and there?
Sir, after graduation, I also wanted to test my skills, whatever I have acquired, and also gain some work experience. And sir, I also wanted some financial support for a few days because depending on my parents for so long, I wanted some financial support. But then sir, after working for 8 months, it felt that I would not be able to dedicatedly contribute to either of the two. So I was being unfair to the company as well. So I decided to leave my job and fulfill with dedication prepare towards civil services.
Thank you.
May I begin by making you a little more relaxed? Can you just put your hands like this instead of like this?
Thank you.
Don't collapse it, just put it casually like that.
Okay.
But very casually.
Yes.
Because when you're sitting very permanently like this, it's like, somebody has punished you. Yahan se haath nahi hatna.
Sorry.
You have very, so your posture makes a lot of difference in, and even if you have to sort of stress a point, you can actually, say, little bit,
Yes,
raise
sir.
your hand
Yes,
once
ma'am.
in a while. Never a finger, of course. You have a very interesting hobby, mythology.
Yes.
What do you mean by mythology? Because I don't know, I have not heard, I don't understand what is mythology.
Ma'am, mythology is basically refers to the stories which
Which
have
stories?
those stories have been
Any
created.
specific name?
Ma'am,
What
it's
are- what-
Mahabharat, Ramayana, the Purans in the Hindu mythology.
So they are called mythologies. How do you define it is a mythology, and why do you say why it is mythology and why it is not itihas?
Because there is no evidence that no evidence exists that it is true.
How do you know the evidence does not exist?
Uh,
Who told you the evidence does not exist? You're not a student of history, you're not a student of archaeology, you're not a student of...
Ma'am, I
Indian
would like
system.
to reframe that. Probably there is no conducive evidence for that. We cannot for sure say that these things happened.
So something that is there, we are celebrating Sri Krishna.
Yes.
Birthday, Rama's birthday.
Yes.
We recently at Kashi, you know what happened. I mean, a huge complex has been made. Shivas there in our. We worship these personalities. So, do you think these are all figments of imagination?
No, ma'am, I do not think that those are figments of imagination. There are some people who believe in them, and there are some people who do not.
I don't
With your
think
permission,
I.
I would like to clarify the question for you. I think you have phrased it badly in where you have mentioned it. You said mythological stories.
Yes.
Suppose I tell you, my experiments of truth is the story of Mahatma Gandhi's life.
Yes.
That is a story.
Yes.
And it is not unrelated to something which happened historically as a fact. So what you are getting confused is about a story for you is fiction, unrelated to fact. There might be mythologies, and mythologies might be giving you narratives which are stories but not necessarily fictions. They may be symbolic, they may be encapsulated knowledge, not unrooted in history. So when you talk of Greek mythology, it is not necessary for Zeus or Apollo to be there,
Yes.
but there is a construct of ideas which is not unrelated to what the Greek city-states and people believe in. That's what she's trying to ask you. So you are arbitrarily dismissing, to my mind, mythology as some people believe in, you don't believe in. But you have religious beliefs, there is mythologies related to religious beliefs.
Beliefs, yes.
And
So, I would like to ask you just one very simple question. That's because you have been told it is mythology, you have not gone through and read the book Mahabharata or the Ramayana, have you?
Ma'am, when I was in 11th standard.
What did you read? Did you read the actual Ramayana and Mahabharata, or you read some versions of it that came out in small booklets and all?
No, ma'am, I read the Ramayana which my grandmother used
You
to
have read the
recite.
Ramayana.
Yes.
So who's narrating? Who writes the Ramayana?
Ma'am, I have read the Valmiki Narayana.
Valmiki. Who was Valmiki?
Ma'am, Valmiki was a sage.
Sage, in whose ashram Sitaji stayed.
Yes.
And he's writing the story about a woman who stayed in his ashram. So do you think it was fiction?
Ma'am, we cannot for sure say that.
Why? Why? Do you not have a place called Ayodhya? Do you not have a place called Sitamari, or a place called where Janak, Puri, etc.? Do you not have geography? What is history? Geography, events,
Ma'am,
and study of events that tell you, that sort of give us the philosophy about it. If any tragedy happens, that's when you enlighten yourself and you start thinking of all the philosophies and values, etc. So history is geographical location, people involved, those people who are eyewitnesses, people who writing about it. So how can you call it mythology? It is the word given to us by a certain narrative. So I think it would be nice for you to reanalyze what you like. You like to read them because they are books of learning, books of knowledge.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So I think, I don't blame you, because we've all been taught that these are mythologies, because for 200 years in India, Ramayana and Mahabharata have been taught as literature, that is kavya, and adhyatma, that is philosophy. Whereas in ancient foreign countries, it's been taught as religion. But for us, if you read the book, it starts with saying it is itihas. Yes, so itihas is the Hindi word for history.
Yes, ma'am. I think the small books which have come out have kind of glorified, or I would say could have sensationalized the whole experience of mythology. I am not getting the correct word.
Itihas. It is called itihas.
It's the original
so
version
I would also
is more
advise you to see this recent channel that has been launched called Sansa TV.
Yes.
And where they talk about the itihas of India.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when something that is fictional, cannot have places existing for centuries,
yes, ma'am.
Personalities surviving for centuries who are revered, and they are revered not because they are gods, they are revered because they stood for values. Yes, Ram stood for values, Krishna did something for re-establishing the good governance. The whole fight was about good governance.
Yes, ma'am.
Dharma was principles, rules being broken.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think you would like to rethink when you're answering these. You can always qualify saying that they are considered as mythologies, but these are stories of our nation's past, and the books term it as itihasa.
Yes, ma'am.
So interpretation.
Yes, ma'am.
So which of the books do you like in your...
Ma'am, I like Mahabharata the
Why?
most. Ma'am, because it seems like it is very close to reality. There are no good characters, there are no bad characters, there are grey characters. So I like the greyness of the characters, and I also like the fact that it points to the fact that wars are always destructive in nature. Even after Pandavas win the war, they lose their whole lineage, all their sons die. Only Abhimanyu's son survives, who also dies later from a snake bite. And there is ultimately no gain from the war.
The progeny remains. People are there. Janmejaya is there. There is a dialogue between Janmejaya and Vasampayan later on.
Ma'am, whose son was he? Parikshit?
Parikshit.
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 Okay, ma'am. I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, so the lineage has continued for 36 generations.
Okay, the lineage has continued.
See, the problem is we have not been taught about the past history.
Yes.
It is not considered as history for a
ma'am.
certain period of time. But before that, it was all a part of our history.
Ma'am.
So as you rightly said, it's a very, very objective narration.
Yes,
there is no saying this character is good or this character
Every
is
character has a bad side and a good side.
That's humanity.
Yes, ma'am. So that is why I like that story very much.
And you don't like it because of Draupadi?
Draupadi is one of my favorite characters in that book because I think she's a symbol of woman empowerment. The scene where she stands out is the scene where her Cheer Haran is happening, because she
her Cheer Haran did not happen. Her dupatta was touched. There was no disrobing. So this is a media created hype. Because in those days nobody wore saris. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am...
see, in terms of women empowerment, as you write, she was the first woman to raise a legal question in the court of the king. Yes, who are the Pandavas to pawn me? I'm not their property.
Yes, ma'am. I think that's a very good thing she pointed out, that even being a wife of a person does not give the husband the right to order something like that or to sell her to some other person.
Yes, so these are itihas which tells us about the status of women. Kunti being a widow could manage her whole life without being like they say, no, that
Yes,
Indians had a very bad view about widowed women.
Yeah,
So these are itihas which tells us what we really were and what we should learn and try to be.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I think instead of saying mythology, you should say that yes, they are considered mythology, so I have written it, but it is itihas.
I think if you just got rid of the word story there and said reading about mythology is your interest, you'll be comfortable.
Yeah.
Then there'll be no semantical problem.
Right.
So, sir, unfortunately, I have already filled my draft. But
No,
it's fine. You
don't
can
worry about
qualify.
That's why this grilling,
Yes.
to help you prepare better to respond to those questions. That's why I was trying to give you that escape route, that everything is a story.
Yes.
There is a story of your life. There is a story of discoveries in science and physics.
Yes.
There is a story of war. There is a story of love and loss. Everything in life is a story.
Yes.
Our life is itself a story, a beginning and an end, with some happy moments, some unhappy moments. You better be prepared to answer questions on story part.
Yes,
Mythology will look after.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
That's why I interrupted rudely, because I think you need
No,
an
sir,
escape
you were
route
not
there.
rude.
No, I'm not apologizing to you.
No.
Because I thought that you would have a problem there also. So you should be prepared to justify how you have filled in that. You
We'll
can't
soon
change
be
it now.
seeing in the curriculum also, which we are trying for now, to bring the itihas of the past into the curriculum.
अगर आज आप देखिए ना, you could say that Gandhi was made into a myth, or Savarkar is being made into a myth now. There is a myth making in real life. Hitler was a larger than life figure in his lifetime. Putin before Ukraine was a myth. Xi Jinping is a myth. Lenin is a myth. And the statues are brought down. So in real life also there is myth making. And Devdutt Patnaik, one good thing he has done is to say myth is not mithya. So you better get prepared for that.
Yes, sir. I'll try my best. Thank you.
So you are a computer science professional. Is the world going to be ruled by algorithms?
Sir, it seems like in the future, algorithms, as algorithms get stronger, they are able to know our preferences. They are able to dictate a lot of things. So I feel, sir, that the world is going to be ruled by algorithms, especially with the advent of artificial intelligence. If it gets the right kind of data, it can be fine-tuned into doing many things which the humans are doing. Sir, Amazon already knows what we want, and so there are many other places where algorithms are also being used.
So how do we check this unrestricted use of these algorithms? How do we regulate, especially social media companies?
Sir, regulating the social media companies is important. I think recently we launched a social media code in India for regulation, and because social media gives us blatant access to express our opinions, sometimes those opinions turn into disinformation or misinformation. There's a lot of fake news also going on social media. So I think, sir, we should be setting up a body which has representations from the social media people and also from the government, which should be regulating these bodies. And yes, sir.
No, but I mean, when you print something in a newspaper, that newspaper is liable for what it has printed, and it is liable for libel can be passed against that newspaper. But social media companies say we are not responsible for what is posted on our platforms. So how do you bridge this gap that they go scot-free, whereas a newspaper is accountable for what it publishes?
So that mostly the social media companies which we have in India are actually based in US. So they kind of give the excuse that Indian laws may not apply to them. But sir, as social media has become a tool for misinformation, fake news, I think we need to bring them to the table and have a discussion with them regarding the regulation part, sir.
Is China a threat to the world?
Yes, sir. I believe the China's recent advances, especially its presence in the southeast, in the South China Sea, and it has also started making some inroads in the Indian Ocean region. And especially what happened in the Galwan Valley was actually a threat for India. And even the US-China relations are at a very bad stage because of the rivalries and the competition which is happening. So I do believe, sir, that China is a threat to the world.
But if China is a threat, then why is the world doing business with China? Why is it the second largest economy in the world?
Sir, because China has a very good laws for. So China has very good laws basically which facilitate investment in that country, and also, sir, China sells its goods very at a very discounted price, which kind of helps in capturing the market. And China has some very good reserves of rare earth metals, which I think it has 80% of the rare earth metals. So I think a lot of countries are dependent upon China for that.
So is it too big now to be controlled?
So China has definitely made some advances, but I think if we have some regional initiatives like Quad or some other initiatives where the like-minded democratic countries get together, then we can counter the influence of China.
That's all.
So, may I request you to please wait for a couple of minutes. The board will discuss about your performance.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
interact, and if you have any questions from the board, you are free to ask them after that. Thank you
Yes.
so much. May I request you to please wait for 2 minutes outside.
Thank you, sir.